Hey everybody, how you guys been? It's been a while. I had an idea for a video just for my channel, somewhat pipe related, somewhat really not. So these are kind of be installments that not necessarily really pipe related or tobacco related at all. But with that being said, lately tobacco, well, I've tried it a little while ago, but really liked it, is the Cornell and Deal Blockade Runner. It's interesting. This isn't usually a type of tobacco per se that I would try normally, but I gave it a shot and it's actually pretty good. So there's your review. So yeah, Cornell Deal Blockade Runner. It's a Navy Cavendish with red Virginias and golden Virginias, soaked in rum, but pretty good. No complaints about that one. But back to about these videos. Basically, I decided to do. I've mentioned a lot of times I like to make a lot of things, and that's kind of really what I enjoy. So my passions are more or less learning how to make things or trying to figure things out. In other words, I really like to frustrate myself. So I figured these are just going to be like entitled Maker's Entry or Maker's Blog. I haven't decided what, but I figured I'd share a couple of these with you because I know there's a few of you out there that actually do like to create things that are outside of restoring pipes or modifying corn cobs. So I figured if I can share some of the tips with some of the other stuff I did, and maybe you guys might want to tinker around with that stuff. So anyways, for the first one, kind of entry, and I've mentioned, I might even shown these before, but never really went through the whole thing with them, and that is cigar box guitars. And this, I will say this is a really, I'm going to rate some of these projects, and I'll tell you, because some of these projects you might need special tools for that I go into, or just the ability to have a wood shop works great. But this one in particular, you do not. Very simple tools, you can make one, and there's a lot of great videos that people have made about how to make these cigar box guitars, and they are a lot of fun. I'm not even a guitar player. I pretended once in a while, but I'm really not. I'm more of a drummer, I guess you could say, but I haven't even been doing that in a long time. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, so yeah, these are actually not that hard to make. This one does have some weird fretting on it, and I'll explain that. But yeah, you go down, you get yourself a cigar box from either, if you have a, if you're lucky enough to have a cigar store or tobacco outlet or whatever it might be. A lot of times they'll sell some of these, and if you don't ask, back when my B&M was open, which has closed now, I used to get these for a couple bucks. Some a little more, some a little less, but never no more than $5 to ever pay. Now, I might have just been lucky. I don't know what the going rate is for them. And so this is actually my favorite one I've done, even though I need to go back and rework it. This would be one of the first ones I did that I was actually really happy with. And kind of where that was kind of that change where I went from just kind of working on them to really being happy with what I did. Not that I wasn't happy before, but unfortunately I couldn't even find my slide and I didn't take time to tune it, so this is a really poorly set up video. And but anyways, yeah, this is just, it has a mahogany fretboard, and it's the neck is made out of some oak. And then the top, I just kind of glued some of the cutoffs from the mahogany on for little ears. And yeah, it needs to be tuned. It's not that great, but the only thing I can find for a slide to kind of give you an idea, if you're not familiar with a cigar box guitar, a lot of times guys play them with slides. All I can find was this PVC coupler, and doesn't make the greatest slide, so hopefully you guys will get the idea. It's really hard with this grooves in there. You get the idea, and you've probably heard them before. But yeah, so this is basically one of them. I have a couple of nice ones that I put pictures up on Instagram of them, perhaps at one time. And those were my latest ones, and they had pickups in them, fully fretted and everything. and I borrowed them out and haven't got them back yet. But anyways, so that is like one of the ones that I was really happy with. But in all fairness, I'll share with, this was actually my very first one. Not the greatest design. It's actually just pine. It's a pine board, and then I went around the box so I could maybe resonate a little bit more. So yeah, it wasn't the greatest, but it really got me going into it, and it really didn't cost me anything. Yeah, and I just put some tape on the side and had the fret markings there because I was playing it with a slide and such. But this is kind of where I started. The reason why it's a great hobby for you guys, if you know, something you're interested in. I mean, even if you're a guitar player and you like to tinker around with things, those are a lot of fun to make, and you'll really, really enjoy it and have fun playing with the slide, learning how to do that kind of stuff. If you're into Delta bluesy kind of stuff. And the history, if you guys can go check them out, the history on the Cigar box guitar is really, really interesting in itself. But a lot of this wood, you can go like to your local big box store, and you can just get the couple of planks. You'd have to cut them to length, but width-wise, they're already cut. And they're fairly clean lumber and fairly flat as well. So there's not a lot of, like, you don't have to have table saws and all this other crazy stuff to do these. And they even can be made simpler. So you guys, you don't need to have a full wood shop to make these, is what I'm trying to say, and you'll have a lot of fun if you're a maker. One of the other early ones I made was this one, and I made kind of a goofy headstock on it. And like, I'll show more on the other one. This one I was messing around with like wood bridges and stuff, and yeah, this one's really not in tune. I don't really ever play this one a whole lot. I haven't really played any of these a lot. But yeah, the beauty part about making these is there's really not a lot of rules as far as what to use. Like for the bridge down here, it's actually, it doesn't come up because it's black, but you see the wood, but it's actually a bolt here. And the same with the nut up here, it's just an actual threaded bolt and a couple of screws to hold them down, for the string break at the headstock. So it's not easy, and it's almost like the more weird parts you can use, the cooler they become. Some guys use like big soup can lids to make a resonator style, or strainers. It's really neat once you get into it. This was one of my latest ones I was working on, and I had this one in a cigar box at one time. This was a fully fretted board. And this one is mahogany fretboard, oak neck, and then I put some might be maple wings I glued on the outside. And it's kind of a big paddle headstock, and I fully fretted this one. There's no nut on it yet. I had it in a box, and then I wanted to change the box because I wanted a different sound and never got back to it. But this one is fully fretted, and there's some marker dots in there too. But this is the ones I do on a Fender scale. You can do them on the different scales if you want. And you don't even have to put frets on them at all. Just as long as, like on my first one where you had markers, you'll know where to slide them. And then moving on, there's another one I made a long time ago too, and I never went back and fixed it. But this was the first one I made actual electric, and this one was cool because this is actually a piece of walnut that has the heartwood and the sapwood kind of in it, and it made really neat fretboard. And actually, I used that same piece on a couple other ones I made. Including the ones that I never got back that I borrowed out. But this one, I changed I didn't like the box and kept messing with it and made it worse, and I ended up putting this on here with the full intention of this one actually did have a pickup in it, and so there's just a cover for the pickup. I believe the pickup is still in there, and I never put the Allen holes back in here, or the holes for the tuner and the volume knob, which are drilled. I just didn't punch them through, and I never really got back to it. But this would be more of a simple kind of headstock. I didn't glue no wings on it, or none of that kind of stuff. So the other thing too, if you want to put pickups in them, you can use piezo pickups too, which is a little bit different, but you can even, if you want to do some box tapping while you're strumming, it picks that up really well. And the other thing I've worked on too is This would be considered a lap dulcimer, or a strum stick, which a strum stick is a name brand. But this one has a really weird fretting. If you're not familiar with dulcimers, it's an Appalachian instrument, which is on the diatonic scale, if I remember right. So in other words, you're not playing the notes in between. That's why you get the weird fretting going down the fretboard. So in other words, wherever you hit it on there, you're going to end up, it's not going to sound terrible. I guess is another way to say it. So that's one thing to look into. If you guys always ever wanted to play a guitar but just couldn't get it down or don't have the time, go look at like not lap dulcimers, that would be the full size, but the stick dulcimer, or a strum stick. I think McNally makes them. Like I said, the strum stick's more of the name brand. Essentially, you can go around and hit that fretboard anywhere, and it doesn't sound bad at all, because you're just playing. You're not playing the half notes or whatever. I don't remember it all correctly, but yeah. So the scale is just like do re mi kind of thing. So you can literally just tap them anywhere on any string, and it almost sounds like you know what you're doing. So that is kind of one of the projects I do. I haven't done any of these in a long time, but I was really into them for a while, making them, and I would give them to friends or something. Like I said, the lumber, the only thing that might be a little tricky is you do have to take this headstock and thin it out a little bit, so that your tuners fit, or your machine heads. And other than that, it's pretty much straightforward. You can go down, like I said, to any big box store, and if you want to go 1.5 or 1 3/4 wide, whatever you feel like as far as going for the width of the fretboard and your neck. And I do separate fretboards, because then I don't have to take this down as far when I cut down onto it. And you can kind of do that with a handsaw or other things. Like on this one, you know, with the fretboard, I didn't even really cut this down at all. But you can see the machine heads, the top of the tuner pegs, barely fit through there. So, but yeah, you just get your, and I use 1/4 inch for my fretboards. So that, like I said, that helps. So you just need like a good solid piece for your neck. And you want this to be a little bit thicker, because there's no truss rod in these, and that'll keep it from warping. Like if you use a softer wood, you might get your neck might warp a little bit. And anytime you get some straight grain is great too. But yeah, you just need a thicker piece, and then you just shape out your neck and glue your fretboard on. So that's one of the other things I make, and that was those projects were a lot of fun. And I haven't done one in a while, and I'd like to get back into maybe making them. I wish I had my nicer ones. I said if you go on Instagram far enough back, you'll have there's a picture of my actual real nice ones. At least I thought I liked those ones a lot. But these are just some of the ones I had laying around yet. So I would suggest, if you guys like tinkering around with stuff, and you might have some cigar boxes laying around, just because, you know, maybe you smoke cigars, give it a shot. Like I said, it doesn't take a lot of tools. There's a lot of how-to videos on these. Shane Spiel, if you go on his channel, he has a lot of stuff, and the parts are, you can either get them on eBay, or you can go to cbgiddy.com is where I got some of my parts from. It's a pretty decent site. They also sell templates for the fretboards as well. That's one thing that might be a little tough, is laying out your frets, and that can be a whole thing in itself. But they have templates. If you're going to do a first one, I suggest making it unfretted. If you do have a guitar already, maybe you can make somewhat of a template based on that one. Otherwise, they sell paper ones, I believe, there, or you might be able to find some online too, where you just kind of lay it out on your fretboard and you mark where they are. So I would suggest, if you're going to make your first one, don't actually fret it, but you need to know where the fret markers are, just so if you're going to play with a slide, you kind of have an idea where you're at on the fretboard. But otherwise, if you do want to go into fretting, it's not terribly hard. It's just, there's a little bit to learn there. So there's a little learning curve if you're going to start fretting your boards. Otherwise, if you go to CB Giddy, I know they sell even the necks where you got to come down to fit your box, but they already got the slots cut in them. And they're not terribly expensive. So, I mean, even if you wanted to just save your time, you could have a neck that's already essentially just cut slots, so you know, on the fretboard. And then they have the necks, and this is already done too, the relief cut down. So essentially, it's just a bunch of finishing and cutting it to fit a box. So if you really don't have any access to any tools, you can just go to cbgiddy.com and do it that way too. So lots of cool stuff. I don't know what I'll do for the next one. That might be a crazy one. Maybe I'll do the didgeridoos. Anyways, you guys have a great day.